Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and today's podcast, it's really just going to be me talking about and ranking the Child's Play, the Chucky films. I'll admit, I'm just going to preface this and saying I'm not one of the biggest Child's Play fans out there. It's certainly by no means one of my favourite horror franchises or anything. I do love the character of Chucky, brilliantly voiced by Brad Dourif. But I'm not really its biggest fan. I don't particularly love any of the Child's Play films, but I do certainly like some of them. I do certainly appreciate some of them. And yeah, of course, Chucky is undeniably a horror icon. As I say, Brad Dourif is just fantastic in that role. I think with Child's Play, what I've always kind of struggled to kind of get around is the whole, 2-foot doll being able to kill so many goddamn people. But at the end of the day, it's horror. It's all pretty kind of nonsensical for the most part, isn't it? Anyway. The one film I am going to be excluding for this list is actually the 2019 remake. Now, there's people that would crucify me for saying this, but I thought it was okay. I'm not ashamed to admit, I thought it was okay. All right, I really didn't take to the look of Chucky in this film, buddy, but, Mark Hamill, a good replacement, if you will. If you're not going to get Brad Dourif, then, Mark Hamill's, I think, pretty much kind of the next best thing. Obviously, he's become so famous for voicing the Joker, which he's absolutely perfect for. But overall, obviously, it veered into the world that we're living in now. Technology, I suppose kind of voodoo and all that, like the 88 original was probably a bit too kind of hokey for a modern audience in that. So it obviously played on... today's very modern age. But I thought it was okay, honestly, in all, because it wasn't just a copy and paste of the original. They didn't just, completely, copy it from start to finish. I thought as remakes go, no, it's by no means one of the best ones, but I certainly don't think it's one of the worst either, by any means. I'm just going to jump into this list now. Now, in bottom space for me, there's no real competition. It's Seed of Chucky, released in 2004. I just really don't like this film. I think, at this point, obviously, in the franchise, it's Chucky has clearly veered into postmodern horror comedy. It's a film that's played for laughs, certainly, without a doubt. And admittedly, there's funny bits. There are certainly some funny moments here and there. But I think Glenn/Glenda was the worst thing to happen to this franchise. I really do. The inclusion of this character just... I like some of the homages and some of the jokes and some of the references and all that. But I'm more of a kind of a diehard horror fan. It's kind of like I kind of missed the original kind of Chucky at this point, where, Chucky would come out with funny lines and that, but it still veered into kind of horror. But obviously with Bride of Chucky, which is obviously I'm going to get to on the list soon, it started to veer way more into comedy. But Seed of Chucky to me is kind of the bottom of the barrel for that franchise. It's always great to, hear Brad Dourif and see Jennifer Tilly and that, great. Quite the double act. I do love them two together. But this was just a weak film. So for me, hands down, it's the worst film in the franchise. Now, above that, a bit of a distance though between this and that one. It would have to be Child's Play 3 for me. It's okay. It's the third film. It came out just the year after Child's Play 2. This is the one that I believe was temporarily banned, I'm not going to go too much into it, but there was a murder that happened in the UK, and apparently the two boys that committed the murder had actually watched this film. And I'm not sure if it was officially banned, but it was quite hard to get hold of for some time. It's Brad Dourif being Chucky, there's some good lines, some good jokes and all that and whatever, but I think ultimately, to me, it just proves to be a pretty forgettable slasher flick. Obviously, a different actor playing Andy Barclay this time round. Obviously, he's older now. He's in his teenage years, military, and a good little moment where he's exchanging all the fake bullets, the for real bullets and all that. It's got some good lines. There's some good lines in there. I'm going to be a brother. And I believe this was a line, "Don't fuck with a Chuck," excuse my language. Or that was Child's Play 2. I felt like it was Child's Play 3, though. But I think ultimately, it was just it was on the slasher train. I mean, it came out, obviously, very quickly, went into production, straight after, hot off the heels of Child's Play 2. And, but I think ultimately just pretty forgettable. That's not to say it's terrible, but it's I'd kind of put it near the bottom of the pile. Now, the film just above this is where it was getting quite tricky, actually, because I feel like there was a couple of Child's Play films kind of jostling for this spot, in all honesty. And I kind of hate myself for saying this, because I did actually quite enjoy this. But it's actually Cult of Chucky. Cult of Chucky, I did actually quite like. I liked the claustrophobic aspect. I liked the Institute setting. It had some kind of memorable kills and that to it. And I will say this, all right, I wasn't keen on the direction that the movie took. I wasn't really keen on the direction this franchise was going in. But at the same time, I kind of commend them for doing something a little different. It's just one that really didn't fit well with me. It veers the franchise in a new direction. It's good to see the original actor playing Andy Barclay back. That's a great little kind of nostalgic touch. For the fans out there. And overall, it certainly it had its moments. Obviously, this was Fiona Dourif's second film in the franchise. Obviously, she's Brad Dourif's daughter. You can really tell, can't you? She's the spitting image of her dad. But this was okay. This was actually okay. There were some moments that kind of there was one moment in particular that was clearly CG that kind of jarred me a bit, kind of detracted me from the film somewhat. But I think this film had some things going for it. Certainly, as I say, I'm a big fan of claustrophobic movies. I did really like the Institute setting and that. And I kind of like the ending that it takes, but they tried to do something new, but it's just not one that I was particularly a fan of. Now, the film just above that, I actually think is a great slice of postmodern horror. This is clearly where the franchise was starting to veer way more into comedy. But I think it's clever. I think it manages to be clever and funny. And that's Bride of Chucky, released in 1998. Obviously, it gave us Jennifer Tilly. It gave me one of my all-time favourite Chucky lines. It ain't the size it counts, asshole. It's what you do with it. Obviously, there's moments at the start. You see Michael Myers' mask, you see Leatherface's chainsaw, Freddy's glove, and this film certainly pays a lot of homage. And the title itself, Bride of Frankenstein, it's clearly a nod to that. And I really enjoy this film. As horror comedy goes, I think this is a pretty good example of one. There's nothing really kind of outwardly scary or anything about this movie. It doesn't try to be. It's just having a lot of fun. It's having a lot of fun with it. I think I actually love the look of Chucky in this film. We got the whole brand new view of Chucky, the kind of battle-worn, kind of worn-torn version, if you will. I absolutely love the look. I think he really does look quite menacing and that. It's a fun film. It's a fun movie. John Ritter's in there, the ever great John Ritter, may he rest in peace. And it's essentially a road movie as well at its core. But I do like a lot of the references this film makes. I think there's a good little Pinhead joke where John Ritter character actually ends up with loads of, nails in his head. And Chucky says to him, what is it? Where have I seen this before? It's clearly a nod to Pinhead from the Hellraiser franchise. And there's a little moment actually from Seed of Chucky, just one little moment that I really kind of liked, where he pokes his head through the door. It's clearly a nod to Jack Torrance's The Shining, and I'm not quite sure what he says. I believe it's along the lines of, I feel like I should say something here, or something. It's been a long time since I've seen Seed of Chucky, though. I've only seen it a couple of times. But Bride of Chucky, I think, is a pretty good entry, into the franchise. Now, the next film on the list, again, I was quite torn between two films for this. I do like them both, but I think the next one for me is going to have to be Child's Play 2, which I actually think is quite a good sequel. I mean, it only came out a couple of years after the first film, and I actually love the cover for this film, where he's like trying to cut off the head of the Jack in the Box. Same actor, Andy Barclay, and obviously he's been taken in, and I think this film has some pretty memorable moments. It has some memorable kills, especially when he kills the school teacher. He's beaten her to death. Again, you've got to kind of get your head around the whole fact of a 2-foot doll being able to kill a full-grown woman and all that. Andy's taken in, and obviously Chucky's after him and that. And I actually love the opening to this film, where Chucky's being rebuilt, and you get to see through the whole process. I really do like the opening. I think it's a pretty good opening. And obviously, he gets taken in the car trunk, and he kills that bloke. That's a memorable scene. It's just that laugh, that evil, maniacal laugh he gives while he's killing. He's such a loathable but lovable character, isn't he? Charles Lee Ray, So I think Child's Play 2 is quite a good sequel. I think it holds up quite well to the first film. It clearly has a bit of a higher body count and that, and I like the ending. I really like the ending, kind of the big climax of the movie, if you will. In the factory with all the Chuckies and that everywhere, and Child's Play 2. I think it's quite a good sequel. Now, second place here is Curse of Chucky, which was actually the first Child's Play film to go straight to DVD/Blu-ray. If you said to me years ago that Chucky would be, because Chucky, Chucky is an iconic horror movie villain, but I never thought I'd see the day where Chucky's going straight to DVD and Blu-ray, but Curse of Chucky did, and it's one of the best films in the franchise, in my opinion. This is my favourite film, aside from the original. I actually love, again, like Cult of Chucky, I love the sense of claustrophobia that this film has. I love the whole kind of old dark house aesthetics. I just love the atmosphere in this movie. And again, it was kind of the Child's Play franchise going back to its roots of actual horror, not veering too much into comedy. It was a film that managed to be kind of creepy in places. I think there's one moment where she's in the elevator, and the lights go off, Fiona Dorif's character. And just that whole scene is actually quite suspenseful. And there's actually a moment in around the dinner table where Chucky's poisoned someone's food, of course, and we don't actually know which character's food it is, and they're all sitting around the table. And it's kind of like, who is it? Which one's going to die? And there was a scene quite reminiscent of that, actually, in Cult of Chucky, which, again, I actually thought was quite a suspenseful scene, where she's trying to prove that Chucky's actually alive and he's not just a real doll, and she's, she's putting the flame underneath him. I think Curse of Chucky was kind of a return to form for the franchise. Having Brad Dourif back, and we actually get to see, when I say Brad Dourif back, getting to see Brad Dourif actually via flashback sequences. They had to try and make him look younger, and I think they generally just used kind of a bit of makeup and lighting. It wasn't CG'd or anything like that. Curse of Chucky, good sequel. And in my opinion, I mean, obviously they played it safe and stuff. To me, it was a horror film that was actually probably worthy of going to the cinema. But obviously it didn't. And so obviously that brings me on to the first movie, which of course, the one that kicked it all off, directed by Tom Holland, who actually directed one of my personal favourite 80s horror films, probably my favourite vampire film of the 80s, Fright Night. And of course, Child's Play also starred, Chris Sarandon in there. And Catherine Hicks. Chris Sarandon was, of course, Jerry Dandridge in Fright Night. This is the film that gave us Chucky. And what I really like about this film is the sense of kind of suspense, towards the beginning of the movie. Chucky doesn't really reveal himself until over halfway through the film. So we just see kind of Andy, conversing, talking to Chucky and all this kind of, it doesn't show anything. There's a level of restraint. It's not like we just see Chucky right off the get-go killing people. There is kind of a sense of build-up to it. And I think this film had what I actually think is the scary... I mean, I've never found the Child's Play films, particularly scary. I've never actually found Chucky myself to be scary. He's a great character. But there is one moment in this film that I think is really well done and really is quite creepy. And it's the moment where she picks up Chucky, Andy's mum, and of course, she looks to check the batteries, and there's no batteries in there. And his head, it's quite a jump scare. It's quite a moment. And Chucky's head swings round. Hi, my name's Chucky, want to play? It's an awesome little moment. I really like that. And it's... the thing is with the movie as well, I think that, yes, it's essentially a slasher movie. I mean, Child's Play is a slasher film. But as I say, it's not just your kind of run-of-the-mill, group of teens being bumped off one by one or anything. There is a genuine kind of motive for Chucky here, trying to transfer, as hokey as it sounds and all that, he's trying to transfer his soul into Andy and that. And of course, everyone's going to think the kid's crazy and all that. It certainly plays on that. Now, I think the whole kind of inception of Child's Play, I think the whole idea of it really came from, because, we'd had dolls and stuff in films and TV and that before. But this really kind of pushed that kind of killer doll thing right into the heart of the mainstream. And there's an episode of The Twilight Zone in the 5th season called Living Dolls, starring Telly Savalas. Great episode, actually. And I think Child's Play, clearly, I've never actually looked into it, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there was inspiration taken there. I mean, The Twilight Zone is one of my favourite TV shows of all time. That show has influenced countless TV shows and films. But there was a living doll with a talking doll, and Telly Savalas' character is convinced the doll is trying to kill him, and there's definitely echoes of that in Child's Play. It would have to be first place for me. It's the one that started it all, and even though I don't find the film outright scary, I think it is certainly the more grounded kind of film in the franchise, if you will, if that makes any sense. And then I think Curse of Chucky isn't really too far off it. I think that's pretty much it for today. As I said, everyone that's listened to this podcast, I hope you've enjoyed it and that. As I said, I'm not the biggest die-hard Child's Play fan out there. I'm sure there's a lot more people out there that are more well-versed in Child's Play than what I am. But I do like most of the films in the franchise. So, that's it for today. Thanks to everyone that listened. And if you've liked what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, Talk and Stalk. I'm looking to be churning out podcasts on a pretty consistent basis. And I'm always willing to listen to any feedback. And that's it for today. Thank you.